I'm sure that they're still testing new technology, but they're testing it through like virtual tests.
Like an off-server type thing.
Yeah, like something where they're like, let's simulate what it would look like if there was actually like a nuclear blast. But we've been trying to pursue nuclear disarmament for like 30 years. So there's no real investment benefit to modernizing our nuclear workforce, right? It's if you're gonna modernize a nuclear weapon, make it something that you put on a plane or something you put in a submarine. Your ICBMs that sit underground stationary, those are not worth updating. And it really, when you're a nuclear missile officer underground, you absolutely feel like the person the world forgot about. Because you're sitting there behind a 1970s era computer. Nobody knows you're there. You don't get to see the sun for 3 days.
How long did you do that for?
You're eating chicken nuggets and like...
And chicken nuggets is like the best day of your life at this time, right?
And tater tot. Yeah. And like, you know, there's somebody every now and then they send you down a can of canned green beans and you're like, well, I got greens today.
Oh, they send it down?
Yeah.
Too? Oh, you're fucking 100 feet down, right?
Somebody delivers it.
And how long did you do that for?
So I was there 2 years.
Wow.
And I moved to the command post after 1 year.
How long that 2 years feel?
And well, those are 4-year assignments. So after 2 years, I left. Yeah, man. Those are 4-year assignments, and your typical professional missileer does 2 assignments before they become a commander. So they do a 4-year assignment, and then they go 4 years underground, 2 years babysitting satellites somewhere nicer as a reward, and then back for 4 more years underground. And then they're like, congratulations, you have now officially kissed enough ass that you can sit in an office above ground now.
So after you do 2 years underground, now you have to do 2 years above ground staring at a satellite.
Yeah, and then you do
and then what, you have to go back
and
down
how many hours is this that you're under there staring at something?
So generally they were 72-hour shifts in 2007 when I was there last. I don't know if they've moved back down to 24-hour shifts or if they're still at 72-hour shifts.
And are you able to bring a deck of cards?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I can't imagine staring at something for 72 hours.
According to like Air Force policy, you're not supposed to bring anything that could become a projectile danger in the event of an explosion. So you can't bring like a coffee mug or something that might get rattled around inside the LCC if there's an actual missile strike.
That sounds smart.
Yeah, so like a deck of cards, a book, that kind of stuff is good. Then the best part about being down there is they have these TVs, these 1970s era boob tubes that are like bolted into the machinery, and they've modernized them with DVD players. So we would come out with like an entire season of Scrubs or Bones or Nip Tuck or whatever the show was back in the 2000s, right? And we would watch an entire season in 72 hours. That was the binge watching before Netflix even existed.
There you go.
When you came up to the atmosphere, were you praying to God that there was a hooker walking around somewhere that got lost? I would have been.
So I didn't tell you. So when you came back up, you're underground for 3 days. You come back up for 2 days, and then you go back down again.
Can you imagine that for 2 years?
You do that 3 or 4 times in a month. And then you have these other requirements that you have to meet. You go through like simulators and you go through various updates and you take quizzes to make sure that you're fluent on all the stuff, right? And then of course you have your leave time built in there too. But basically in the course of a 30-day month, you're going to spend somewhere between 9 and 12 days underground. You're going to spend between 6 and 8 days like recovering from the other days that you're underground. So that takes you to 12 plus 8 is 20. And then you got 10 training days where you're not necessarily off. Like those 2 days, you're off. You just go back to your house and you sleep and you eat and you do whatever you want to do. And then the other 10 days, you're back in the office in uniform every day. And you're doing your quizzes, you're talking to your bosses, you're working on your career, you're doing your career development stuff, right? But it's nice because where most people will get, 6 to 8 days off, depending on the weekends, you get 8 to 10 days off, generally speaking, depending on how much alert you sit.
Now, when you're in that hole for 72 hours, what kind of toll does that take on the body when you come up? I mean,
it's horrible, man.
It has to.
Yeah, you lose track of anybody who's done shift work knows how hard shift work is.
I mean, like physically, when you come back up from 100 feet down, is there any physical thing?
Not really. So 100 feet under solid ground isn't like 100 feet underwater. There's no pressure. There's nothing like that, right? So what ends up happening is you come back up, and aside from the fact that you haven't slept right for a few days, because there's an alarm that goes off constantly. Every time there's like, they have to simulate a missile launch essentially every few hours.
I bet you can hear that in your head for the rest of your life.
EAM.
Yeah.
All the time. So you never really get more than a few hours of sleep at a time, and you have to rotate with your partner. So like they're on and you're off, and you try to sleep, and you're hot bunking in the same cot and everything else. And so it's hard because if you get along with the person, cool. If you don't, it's a really shitty alert. And then if they're good at their job, then it's cool. But if they're bad at their job, then it's not so cool, because then you got people calling constantly to say, hey, you fucked this up, you fucked that up, you got to fix this, you got to fix that. And then you're eating terrible. You don't get to exercise unless you do like push-ups and grab like a rafter to do pull-ups. That's pretty much all you got. On like a hard floor, you can't bring anything with you. You can't bring exercise equipments or jump rope, anything like that that might get bounced around is technically against the rules.
So you're basically in jail.
Yeah.
You're basically 100 feet underground in jail. You just get out every 3 days.
And there are people doing it right now at any given moment. 3 missile bases. Each missile base has about 10 LCCs. Each LCC has 2 people in it, right? So you're talking about 20 people per base, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, weekends and holidays and everything. So even now, as we're having this conversation, there are 60 Americans underground 100 feet suffering through this.
If you like this short clip, make sure you click here to see the next clip, or here to see the full podcast episode.